Good evening. Welcome to the Elyria City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. At this time, we'll take a moment of reflective silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Mitchell, would you please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. At this time, I'd ask everyone to either turn their phones off or in the silent mode out of respect for the council meeting and chambers here. Mr. Clerk, I have roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sira.
Here.
Mr. Armstrong. Here. Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian.
Here.
Mrs. Sawerka. Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
We have one absent. I've got an excuse for Mrs. Sawerka.
Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Public hearings.
There are none.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah,
Second.
second by Mr. Senator. Any
Question.
discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Remarks and reports from city officials. Mayor Brubaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple quick things. One, yesterday was our 39th annual Dr. Martin Luther King celebration, the march from here to the high school and the events. I want to congratulate Reagan Phillips, who is the chairwoman of our Dr. Martin Luther King Commission, and her team for a great event. The speaker was the 2025 or 2024 Teacher of the Year out of Twinsburg High School. She was a very phenomenal speaker and really tugged at you if you really listened to the words she said. So congratulations to the Dr. MLK Commission for a great event. Secondly, as you know, I was in D.C. over the weekend not for the inauguration. I got out of Dodge before that. But I had a chance to, for the U.S. Mayor's Conference, I had a chance to go over with 4 other mayors from the Ohio Mayor's Alliance to meet with new Senator Marino at his office and his staff, and we were able to share some of the concerns that each of us have for our communities. If you read my Facebook post, it was on there. But the 3 things I touched on was the EPA dissent decree. Obviously, that is a legal thing, and you know we're under that. But I was sharing with him that we have to do all these repairs and adjustments and new lines and this new whole system that we're putting in, and it's a huge financial burden to our residents, as well as our water and the concerns that we have with the infrastructure. And you know they don't have a real high regard for the EPA as it is, this administration, and I'm not asking him to do anything other than, you know, is there funds, is there a way out there that they can help, whether it's earmarks or something else, to throw communities like us, and the Warren mayor was there too, and as you know, they're a legacy city with longtime manufacturer, and he had some of the same concerns. And Senator Marino was very open to that. In fact, the other 2 items I'm going to talk about, he asked me to forward that information to his main assistant that was there taking notes. The second thing I talked about, which has been an issue, I think Councilwoman Sawerka was a big one on this, and that's the 5 bridges that go through town, the Norfolk Southern. And I shared with him the dilapidated conditions, what it looks like, the fact that it goes right through the center of town, and I asked for any help, any consideration with getting meetings with them, and he has connections with them, so again, he'll follow up. And the last one is affordable housing. You know, we have low-income housing, we have high-end housing, but we don't have affordable housing, and all the mayors spoke of that, quite frankly, and the ability to create housing, particularly here in the state of Ohio, and that's something he heard on the campaign trail. So those 3 items of what stuck with me and that I wanted to share with them. The other thing is Sherrod Brown always had an office in Lorain. Senator Marino is actually opening an office here in Elyria. So we'll not only have Senator Marino's office here in Elyria, but we'll have Congressman Lada's office here in Elyria. So being able to make those connections over the weekend, as well as a bunch of others that unfortunately I don't have time to discuss, but it was a well planned out weekend. And then finally, tonight is the final meeting for Chief Pelko. As you know, he is retiring at the end of the month, but tomorrow will actually be his last day in office, and the director will talk about the next steps on that. But I want to personally thank Chief Pelko for the many years, 31-plus years of service to the city of Elyria. As I said this morning in the department head meeting, I worked with him when he was in the DB, when we were going into houses and things of that nature. And then as he became the chief and some of the things he accomplished with the NIU unit coming back, the traffic patrol, we've increased our staffing there. You know, we've had some retirements and we'll have another one coming up, but we've increased our staffing there. Recruiting has been phenomenal. And he led us through the pandemic, which, again, none of us have ever seen before. So I congratulate the chief on the great job that he did in his 31 years as in the police department and his 4+ years as the Elyria Police Chief. So, Chief, thank you very much.
Any questions for the mayor? Mr. Tolet?
Through you. Only question I have, do you have an update on the Jefferson Junior High site? Speaking of housing, do you have any updates?
Through you, Mr. President, they have received their funding and are preparing the plans to turn in. And again, we have donated or given them through a grant $250,000, and they cannot utilize that until the building is demolished. And my understanding is obviously they can build and demolish simultaneously. We expect to see some movement on ground over there by early, late spring.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Safety Service Director, Mr. Pinowski.
Thank you, and through you. I would also like to say thank you to Chief Pelko for the last year of service. It's been a pleasure working with him. I think in this day and age in our society, committing yourself to 31 years of service in anything is very impressive. And so the fact that he committed 31 years of his life and his career to the city of Elyria, I think deserves all of our respect. So thank you. As the mayor indicated, Chief Pelko's tenure, his retirement is end of this month. So I am appointing an interim police chief. The Civil Service Commission has approved the process to start the process to select a new permanent police chief, but that'll take a little bit of time. And so I am appointing an interim police chief effective February 1st. That will be Captain Michael Grooms. And I think that on an interim basis, he'll lead us during that period of transition until we can complete the civil service process to select the permanent police chief. I notified the captains and Chief Pelko today of my decision, and so I'm making you aware of that today. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm going to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Pinowski? You good? Finance Director Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like to thank Chief Pelko for his many years of service with the city. It's been a pleasure working with you, and best wishes on the new chapter of your life.
Very good. Law Director Derry.
Thank you. Good evening, through you, Mr. President. Sound like a broken record, but Chief, thank you very much. It's been an honor to work with you and also to learn a great deal from you. We went through the process of implementing body cameras together, which was it was definitely a learning process. But we are a better city and I think department for it. And I wish you well on your next adventure. And with that, I don't have anything further to report. I would note that we do have strategic planning after the conclusion of council, and I would anticipate requesting an executive session at that time. We do have our outside counsel that will be here at approximately 8 p.m.
Very good. Any other questions for the Law Director? Very good. Let's see. How about the City Engineer? Mr. Very good. The Retired Chief, Mr. Pernesti, Chief Pernesti. Assistant Safety Service Director, Ms. Calvert. Is there anybody else here? Oh, Chief, I see you back there. I'm just pulling your leg. Lear Police Chief, Chief Pelko.
Good evening. I just want to say a few words. As you all know, I'm retiring. For the past 30 years, I had the incredible honor and privilege of serving this community. It has been a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and most importantly, growth, both as a professional and as a person. Every day, I've had the honor of working alongside dedicated officers, staff, and community members who have all shared a commitment to making this city safer and stronger. Together, we faced difficult times, but we also celebrated victories, and we've always remained dedicated to the core values of integrity, service, respect, and accountability. I want to express my deepest thanks to the men and women of the Elyria Police Department. You are truly the heart of this department. Your courage, professionalism, and commitment to the city inspires me daily. I'm proud of the work we've done together. Your dedication to protecting and serving this community has been nothing short of remarkable. I'm sorry. To the City Council and to the community leaders who have supported us over the years, thank you. Your partnership has been crucial in helping us provide the resources and guidance we needed to make this department the best it can be. We have worked together to create policies and initiatives that make a real difference in people's lives, and I'm proud of what we have accomplished. As I move into the next chapter of my life, I want you all to know that my commitment to the city will never waver. I may no longer wear the badge, but I will always care deeply about the safety and well-being of this community. The future of our police department in the city is in good hands. I have full confidence in the leadership and the officers who will continue to carry out this mission. I know that with the support of City Council, the community and our department will continue to evolve and meet the challenges of the future. Thank you again for the honor of allowing me to serve as your police chief. It's been a privilege of a lifetime. I look forward to seeing the continued progress of the city, and I'm excited to watch this great community thrive in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Everything you've said in your comments and remarks were point on, but they needed a leader to kind of guide them in those directions, and you've done an incredible job, not only in the last 4 years, but the 31 years that you've been a part of the department. So we're greatly appreciative of all your efforts and work and dedication and commitment to the city, and I wish you, I'm sure everyone would agree with that, nothing but the best in your retirement. And but don't be a stranger. We still want to have you come on around and kind of just see how you're doing and everything like that, but I appreciate everything you've done for the city of Elyria. Mr. Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is through you. Chief, I want to say thank you for your dedicated service. Thank you for always being there to answer questions. You came into this council chambers every night with a very positive approach. I think a lot of us noticed that. And I will always remember the first time we met when you were named chief and how you were looking forward to your responsibilities, to the job. And you did say it would be a cold, cold day in January before you'd ever retire. So that being said, congratulations and good luck.
Through you, Mr. President, real quick, Chief. They say a measure of someone's character is if they leave something better than when they started, and that's you. You're the epitome of that, and my words are thank you. We're a better city because of you.
Mr. Lippian.
Through you, Mr. President, thank you. Chief Pelko, I will always remember you as a leader with a heart and a man of his word. Because I remember when the traffic patrol unit was just you, me, and then Safety Service Director Brubaker at those days, and a couple other people arrayed around a table talking about this idea, and you told us that you'd make it happen, and you did. You followed through on your word, and that's rare these days. And I'll always remember that, and the city of Elyria is better for your service, and we'll dearly miss you. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Lippian. Mr. Armstrong.
Through you, Mr. President, I just want to say it's an honor, Chief. When you started on this force, I was a 10-year-old kid, and just 90s was pretty rough. We all remember the 90s back here in Elyria. And for you to go from there to now, that's pretty awesome. I just also want to say thank you for putting so much trust in me and giving me so much guidance, because sometimes, the Fifth Ward can be a little rocky. So thank you for always answering your phone when I needed to talk to you. Good luck to you, sir.
Very good, very good. Mr. Schneider?
Thank you, Chief Palco. I think I came on council right around the same time that you became the chief, so you've been the only chief that I've known while I've been up here, and I have to say, you've been excellent to work with, extremely approachable, and any time I've ever reached out to you with any questions, concerns, you've been pretty quick at getting back, extremely quick at getting back with me or anyone in your department. So thank you for your many years of service, and I wish you the best.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. Chief Pelko, I just want to say thank you. You've always taken my calls, responded to my emails, and I know I bugged your eyeballs out, especially about the traffic enforcement unit. So I just want to say I appreciate you, and I wish you the absolute best as you move forward. Thank you.
Ms. Davis?
Through you, Chair. Chief, I just want to say thank you again. I thank you for the personal contact that we have. So I hope you get the other chief in contact with me so I know who he is also. And it's very good to know that we can have a chief that we can talk to and have a personal relationship to. So I just thank you for all that you did for my ward. We appreciate you, and you'll know when to retire.
Very good. All right. Okay, let's move on to President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, Community Development and Finance. Item number 2, Community Development and Finance. Item number 3, Finance. Item number 4, Finance. Item number 5, Finance. Items 6 through 9, received and placed on file in the clerk's office. There was a referral that came in from the mayor in regards to accepting as the 2025 NOPEC Energized Community Grant. That would go to, I believe, Finance, or just to make that part of the referrals. So it was late getting over and through, or the office was closed at that time, so we're good to go. I just want to make that on the record for that. Mr. Sarah?
Was number 5 for rules or for finance?
It says rules.
Yeah.
Did I say finance?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, my apologies. Number 5 is to rules.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarification. Okay. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There are none?
Petitions and remonstrances from the council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are a couple here. We have considered the matter of a liquor license transfer as requested by Jeffoco, Inc. to V&P Enterprises LLC, 645 Cleveland Street, Elyria, and the city of Elyria does not request a hearing.
Mr. Schneider?
Mr. President, I ask that this committee report be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules, and the city does not request a hearing.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Committee Report 2025-1. We have considered the matter of a liquor license stock transfer as requested by Red Lobster Hospitality LLC DBA Red Lobster number 632, 6935 Midway Boulevard, Elyria, and the city of Elyria does not request a hearing.
Mr. Schneider?
Mr. President, I ask that this committee report be approved in its first reading under suspension of rules, and the city does not request a hearing.
Second.
Question.
Second by Ms. Davis. And is there any further
Mitchell.
discussion? Question?
Mrs. Mitchell.
Ms. Mitchell? Sorry.
Question.
Sorry. Not have my A game here tonight. The question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Committee report 2025-2. That's all the committee reports.
Reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving a list submitted by the Safety Service Director for the collection of delinquent inactive utility accounts and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said accounts to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2025-4. Sponsored by Finance, a resolution approving a list of properties for the collection of emergency temporary repair costs and/or demolition-related costs, and directing the Clerk of Council to certify said costs to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2025-5. Sponsored by Finance, a resolution finding that the city has unfit for municipal use certain city property.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2025-6. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none?
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director of the City of Elyria to dispose of city property that is unfit for municipal use.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question has been called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-7. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with Rotzel and Andrus, a legal professionals association for legal services, labor matters, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-8. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance ratifying the mayor's application for, and if offered, the acceptance of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security FEMA Fiscal Year 2025 Assistance to Firefighters Grant for the capital needs for the Elyria Fire Department and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called on the suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-9. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a 10-year master services and purchasing agreement with Axon Enterprise, Inc. for the Elyria Police Department and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-10. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with Fitch and Associates LLC for consulting services and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-11. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with Retail Strategies LLC for retail consulting services and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-12. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with Strollo Architects, Inc. for engineering and architectural services for the design of a new central maintenance complex and declare emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-13. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Browning Ferris Industries of Ohio, Inc., doing business as Republic Services of Elyria for trash and landfill services and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-14. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a change order number 1 with Crossroads Asphalt Recycling, Inc. for the 2024 OPWC Midway Boulevard resurfacing project and declare an emergency.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-15. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with CT Consultants, Inc., a Vertidance company for assistance with design, bidding, and construction services for the lead service line replacement project, Phase 5, and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-16. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for and, if offered, accept and enter into a water supply revolving loan account agreement through the Ohio EPA for the replacement of lead service lines and galvanized service lines in the city of Elyria and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I would ask that this ordinance be passed on the suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. Excuse me, Mr. President, I'll be recusing myself from this item.
Okay. Make note of that. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried.
Ordinance 2025-17. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the replacement of lead service and galvanized service lines in the city of Elyria and declare an emergency.
Ms. Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Armstrong. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-18. Sponsored by Utilities and Finance. An ordinance ratifying the mayor's application for, and if offered, the acceptance of the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency Community and Litter Grant for the Organic Material Diversion Project and declare an emergency.
Mitchell?
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2025-19. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinances second reading.
There are none.
Ordinances third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development requests the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 1/27, 6 p.m. Joint CD Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 1/27, immediately following the CD. Finance requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 1/27, immediately following the joint. Rules requests the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 1/27, immediately following the Finance. Utilities request the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Wednesday, 2/5, beginning at 6 p.m. And Strategic Planning requests the Mayor, Safety Service Director, and Finance Director, and the Law Director on Monday, 2/3, immediately following Council.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. As many of you know, I will be going off into the wild blue yonder very soon again. I'm going to be leaving for some military duty and officer training school. So if any of you are missing me, hopefully it will be some comfort to know that I'll be on my face doing push-ups and sit-ups and getting yelled at again. Yay me. So I'm looking forward to that, actually. So if anybody has any questions, happy to answer them.
Very good. Anything else had miscellaneous and unfinished business? Okay. Hearing none, I guess we can go into adjournment, then we'll come back into strategic planning.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I believe our outside counsel will be here. They're en route, should be here momentarily.
Okay. But we can adjourn the meeting at this point, or just want to re-engage?
Yes, through you, yes, I would say adjourn council, and then we can convene the committee meeting.
Okay, very good. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second,
Moved by Mr. Sierra, second by Ms. Mitchell.
question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
That, Phil? Huge. Why didn't you ask in the meeting?
Just found out. Kind of like to think about it. No. No. Got rejected from the Naval Academy in the last call.
'25. This is a matter of the Reeser Point Development Agreement and TIF-related legislation. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Law Director Deary.
No. Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, I would request that Strategic Planning Committee entertain a motion for executive session for purposes of discussing imminent pending litigation related to this matter that would require a roll call vote.
Very good. Can I get a motion to go into?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconding. Roll call vote.
Mr. Callahan?
Aye.
Mr. Sarah?
Aye.
Mr. Armstrong?
Aye.
Mr. Oswald?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Tolet? Aye. Mr. Lippian?
Aye.
Mrs. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Schneider?
Aye.
Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
All ayes.
Take a few minutes. We're going to shut off the
If everyone would please turn off their microphones, and then